No Chill Sports is an unapologetic, high-energy sports show where opinions fly fast and facts hit hard. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the hosts and guests, and do not necessarily reflect those of any affiliated networks, sponsors, or partners. Content may include passionate debates, bold predictions, and unfiltered takes that some viewers may find intense or controversial. Listener discretion is advised. If you're looking for chill, this ain't the place.
Hey, welcome back to another hot episode of HBCU Hour, where the legacy lives loud and the culture takes center stage. From the gridiron to the hardwood, we shine a spotlight on the soul of Black college sports. This ain't just coverage, it's a celebration. What's good with you, my boy? Oh, you on mute.
I thought I clicked off. My bad. What's good with it, man? It's a Monday, bro.
It is. It's a Monday. Don't seem like we almost at the end, bro, of all the preview shows. I want to restart and do it all over again. But we get to talk to, you know what I'm saying, to our guys, man, bring some people on to kind of talk all things D1. Tonight, Thursday, we'll talk D2. But I'm looking forward to it, man. Looking forward to this conversation. I want to know what everybody else thinking, man, because I'm wondering if we lying since everybody else been like everybody going get 9 wins, 10 wins on the season.
Somebody lying.
It's a lot of people telling. I think I know somebody selling T-shirts, and I think they lying. They've been lying for a couple of years. I know he watching, so I'm gonna. Y'all know who we talking about. I ain't gonna say his name, but nah, we finna get into it tonight. But first, before we get started, y'all know we gotta give a shout out to our sponsors over at Dubby. My bad. Dubby is a powdered energy drink aimed at gamers and individuals seeking focus and energy. It's known for its clean ingredients, no jitters, and various flavors. Dubby is also available in a hydration formula for those needing electrolytes. W achieves its smooth, effective focus with a high-end tasting experience while using no sugars, no fillers, no artificial colors or dyes. Try W today by scanning the QR codes you see on the screen or visit them on the website at bit.ly/NoChillW. W, your taste buds' favorite energy drink. If you're looking to bring your vision to life, whether it's screen print, embroidery, or custom picture tees, Kelly Creation has you covered. From bold logos to photo perfect prints, nobody does it better than Donald D.K. Kelly, the mastermind behind the magic. Give him a call today at 225-202-2625 or shoot him an email at kellycreations225@gmail.com. That is KELLYKREATIONS225@gmail.com. And hey, let them know No Chill sent you. You just might get a little bit of that extra touch of heat. Kelly Creations. Nobody does it better. We have to bring our good man from FCS Football Central, Mr. Zach McKinnell, and also sports director of Fox 54 in Huntsville, Alabama. The man himself, award winner. He do all kind of stuff. But our good man, Mr. Mo Carter. Fellas, thank y'all for joining us.
Appreciate y'all, man.
Hey, good to see y'all again. Joining us, man. Glad to have y'all back with us.
Yeah, great evening. Yes, sir, it is. What's good? Kelly Flicks will be with us on Thursday. We're gonna talk D2 and Paris with us. Thank you. Fellas, we gotta talk. What's good, Renard? We gotta talk. Zach, you know, people been on here lying. Everybody winning 9 games, everybody winning 10 games. It's a bunch of possums that should have just said that they ain't gonna win it, you know. But nah, man, I'm looking forward to this season. I do want to talk about HBCU football as a whole. But like we've been saying, before you go forward, you got to look back. Last year, as a whole, I think that there was a lot of parity, especially in the SWAC, for the most part. But Jackson State just still looked like leaps and bounds above everybody else. Y'all thoughts on last season and what we saw and how it played out?
Go ahead, Mo.
All right. Well, yeah, I think honestly for Jackson State, it was one of those things that TC Taylor continued to just live his dream as being alumni of the school and leading his favorite school to higher heights that he always expected of. One of the things that I literally just had stick in my brain from when I interviewed him, early in the year prior to one of the games I had for ESPN Plus was, hey, we're preparing our guys not just for the long run. We're preparing our guys to play in December. And what did they end up doing? They end up playing in December, beating Southern for the SWAC championship, and then turning around and winning the Celebration Bowl. So when you have a mindset like that from your head coach, and it goes all the way down to not just the players and coaches, but also probably to the equipment staff and water boys and trainers and all that, then, that lets you know that they've got something solid in place. I think the biggest challenge now for TC Taylor and company is to continue with the high expectations, primarily in this world of the transfer portal. Yes, I do know that Jacobian Morgan is returning as their starting quarterback, which I think is one of the best things. But hey, he's going to have to find a way to build a lot of chemistry with some new faces on that offense, along with a defense that will have to replace some new faces as well. So, yeah, I still do think Jackson State probably is the most polished team coming into the upcoming season after you roll off of 2024. But at the same time, too, I have to still take the wait and see approach.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of build on what Mo said there, I mean, coming into the season, I was pretty bullish on Jackson State, just looking at the roster and what they had coming back, especially in the trenches. And you saw that really rear its head throughout conference play where they were so much better than everybody else in the trenches. And that's offensive and defensive line. I mean, from Jeremiah Williams, the defensive tackle, who I still don't think gets enough credit, who's also coming back this upcoming year, all the way to the offensive line with Evan Henry and Kirk Ford and those guys. They were just bigger, more physical, more disciplined, and they made stuff happen, especially defensive line. I mean, I've never seen 2 defensive tackles be so disruptive week after week after week. And if you know anything about line of scrimmage play, you get all the edge rush, all the edge rushers in the world are great. They can get to the quarterback, but if you can generate negative plays from the interior of the defensive line and create some sort of push or penetration to the backfield, it's just different, man, with Jackson State. And so you look at the offense, Jacobian Morgan does need to take a step forward. I did think he improved last year, but then there was just those blips on the radar, right, where they had that weird QB rotation. He had the Southern game where he got a little bit banged up in the SWAC championship. I just want to see Jacobian Morgan put together, 12, 13 games, depending on how far they go, right, of just a complete season together, because I do think he has the size, the arm talent, everything, all the boxes you want checked. It's just the consistency part of it. And then on the flip side, man, I mean, the defense I think is going to be really good, but you do have to revamp a few pieces in the secondary. You lose a few key starters, especially there at safety. But I thought they did a good job in the portal. And then it's just you look across the conference, guys, who's going to take that next step and challenge. And we see this. You can look at P4, FCS, G5, D2, D3 high school. When there's a team that sets the bar as high as Jackson did, everybody in the conference has to chase it. I mean, Pooh and Ant, we saw this when Alabama was on their run, right? Everybody in the SEC had to raise their game. We saw it when USC was in the Pac-12. The Pac-12 had to raise their game to catch USC, and you saw a few programs do that, right? Oregon emerges. You've seen some schools, LSU, Georgia with Kirby Smart emerge. Who in the SWAC is going to do that? I think Southern has done well getting to the SWAC championship, but Southern's been missing that oomph or that it factor, right, in their game. They can skate through the West, but guys, when they get to the big game, they always seem to fall short. PV has a lot of hype coming into the year. Tremaine Jackson's talking to everybody who will listen. Are they going to be able to deliver on the field? And then you look, FAMU, Alabama State have been right there at number 2 for, or last year and then the past few seasons for Bama State. Can they take that step forward offensively with Andrew Body and make a push here to catch Jackson State? That's going to be the 2 biggest things for me, is see if how far Jackson can take this. And does anybody in the SWAC really invest in their program and want to try to catch Jackson State right now? Because right now they are still ahead of everybody else in the SWAC, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Jacoby and Morgan, because that's kind of where I wanted to go with my first question. If you look a few years ago across all HBCU football, you had Davius Richards at Central, you had Jeremy Musa at FAMU, you had Shador Sanders at Jackson State. We had Andrew Body when he was healthy at Texas Southern. We've seen high level of quarterback play in HBCU football, but it seems like the last couple years it really hasn't been at that same level. And when you have a guy like a Jacoby and Morgan, it kind of gives you that much more of an advantage over the competition, because you got the advantage at the signal caller. Do you see either one of y'all see the quarterback play kind of elevating a little bit from what we saw last year going into this season?
Just in the SWAC or like HBCU?
Just across all HBCU football.
I think there's plans in the place to try to elevate the QB position, but also I think it'll kind of go from program to program, to be honest with you. I've seen Jacoby and Morgan, basically come from being a guy who had to play his way into the rotation, become the starter, then play his way into the rotation again, and then all of a sudden, become the man at the end of the year. I mean, don't forget, he started at the beginning of the year. Then they had Cam McCoy play a little bit. Then McCoy, got nicked up against Southern. Then I remember he got kind of pulled after that pick 6 against Grambling, and the Jacobian really got his opportunity to do again. Now we know that, McCoy is now transferred to another school in the SWAC. So clearly, I think Morgan realizes that, it's his job, but there's always going to be a competition to always happen. I mean, if I look at over at Southern, I think, for the most part, Woods will probably be their guy. But then, as we mentioned, McCoy just transferred over there. So now you've got competition. And of course, the former Valley quarterback, whose name slips my mind right now, he's also there. And who knows, maybe Coach Graves is drawing up some packages to make all 3 of those guys or whatever work. I mean, here in Huntsville, Cornelius Quad Brown, he appears to be the starter going into fall camp, but then you got a guy like Mekhi Hodges, who's transferring from Arkansas Pine Bluff with a lot of talent and a lot of experience. So I think Sam Shade is trying to create a lot of healthy competition, going on with that. And I'm kind of noticing that's kind of the case. The quarterbacks that are transferred to other SWAC programs during the offseason or during the spring, they're coming in with experience to kind of push the other guys who may have thought they had a equal chance. Even at Alabama State, yes, we know Andrew Body will probably be the guy, but we saw what's happened the last couple of years. His health is not the best at certain times, and it's literally the next man up factor. I don't think Eddie Robinson Jr. wants to go through that once again, but at the same time, you have to understand those scenarios. But no, I think quarterback play is something that continues to elevate itself here in the conference. But of course, I think it just goes from team to team. You go with what's your strongest points overall.
I still don't know if we have that Akil Glass, Shador Sanders level quarterback in the SWAC. Jacobian is by far the best quarterback in HBCU football right now. But like I said earlier, it's the consistency part of it. How many games last year did Jacobian carry Jackson to a win? I think the Celebration Bowl he did, right? Because I thought South Carolina State did a good job limiting Irv Mulligan for a bit, and Jacobian was lights out in that game. Outside of that early fumble, if I'm not mistaken, where I think that was more of an offensive line breakdown, but he was on point in that game. But you look across the season, there was a whole lot of defense, a whole lot of Irv Mulligan in there, and Jacobian didn't crash the ship. This year, I really want to see Jacobian go out there and ball out and have like a Walter Payton level year. And I think that's what the SWAC's missing, like a Walter Payton level candidate with the FCS Heisman. I think all four of us would pick Jacobian to be that guy in the SWAC, but he probably wouldn't be the favorite because if you were looking across the FCS quarterbacks, like you would probably lean other ways right now.
Yeah.
But Jacobian has that ability. Like I've seen that in him in flashes. I just need to see a full season of that. But then I look across the MEAC. I think there's some excitement here for a handful of quarterbacks, right? You have Walker Harris, who's coming back, who I think is kind of in a similar boat as Jacobian, where we've seen the flashes of him being super talented. It was just the consistency, and it was his first year starting. You're replacing a legend in Davius Richard, and the offense had to kind of shift because they are two completely different quarterbacks. And so I think year two, Walker Harris should be a lot better. You have Stubblefield down at South Carolina State, who's coming in to replace Eric Phoenix, a really, really highly touted kid out of Incarnate Word. We saw him in limited action when Phoenix got banged up, and he looked the part. Right. I mean, in the little bit we saw of Stubblefield, he was balling out. But then you also got Izzy Carter down at Norfolk. And I'll say this, I never kind of put stock into numbers. If you're wearing number 7 as a quarterback under Michael Vick, I got a feeling he thinks you're pretty good. He's not going to give the backup quarterback number 7 to go sit on the bench and hold the clipboard. That's just my opinion. So and the kid was really good coming out of high school, saw some limited time at USF. But then also too, you got Marky Adams coming back at Delaware State, who we saw flashes. They just didn't have any talent around. It was just him and Jaden Sutton. It was like, please, someone help us somewhere else. They were putting up 40 points a game and getting beat. So I think the excitement's in the MEAC, but you look across the SWAC, quarterback questions everywhere. You have Body at Bama State, who I think if he stays healthy, we all feel like could be a top 3 quarterback in this conference. But the problem is he hasn't been healthy in a while. Yeah. A huge if at this point. I've heard he's looked good in spring and all that, but we'll see. I've heard a lot about Quad Brown, but I heard a lot about Quad Brown last year, and nothing ever developed during the season. And so I need to see Quad Brown in a game. He went to UT Martin, super hype, lost the job there. So I need to see Quad Brown do it on the field. We know what Mekhi Hagan's in, but is he going to win the job? But then you look across the SWAC, Texas Southern, they might bring back the guy who got hurt early in the year. They got the guy who replaced him at one point. Yeah. So who I think is going to be Cooper, but again, I haven't seen him in a full season. He was hurt most of the year. We have no idea who's starting at PV. It could be one of like 6 or 7 different guys. UAPB's got a quarterback question because Hagan's transferred out. Who knows what Valley looks like? Alcorn doesn't have a quarterback. FAM doesn't have a quarterback. Bethune may or may not have a quarterback. Alabama A&M has a battle. So you're looking across the SWAC, there's all kind of QB question marks. It really looks like Jacoby and Morgan. And then behind them, it's like, can Andrew Body stay healthy? Can KJ Cooper step forward? Can Jalen Wood solidify himself as a starter? And it's everybody else with just a massive question mark. And I think that's what hurts the SWAC. And to your point, I don't think it's bad quarterback play per se. Now there has been. Let me correct myself. There's been some really bad quarterback play recently. But going into the year, I just think we have more unproven quarterbacks or quarterback situations than we just have bad quarterbacks, because there's a lot of chances for a lot of guys to make a lot of money this year.
That's fair. That's fair.
And hey, Blue, let me add to it too. My guy Darian Gray on Locked On HBCU a couple of weeks ago made a very, very valid point about the QB situation in the SWAC. He was like, look at the amount of QBs that are actually going to SWAC Media Day. That truly shows you that either the coaches don't feel like they have the truly established quarterback to bring to represent their team, or it's just a matter of, hey, we're going to have some legit battles during the dog days of the summer as it leads up to Labor Day weekend for, a number of teams, with the exception of a few, like the Southerns that are playing, the MEAC SWAC Challenge. So that's another thing to really, really kind of take a look at, which also kind of lets us know that the storylines for quarterbacks in the SWAC could be going literally from preseason camp all the way to, the Thanksgiving week / first week of December, depending on what schools you're looking at overall with that. So we definitely have to keep an eye out on that. And a SWAC media day with only, I think, 3 quarterbacks on the roster, 3 out of 12. definitely speaks dividends and volume about the scenarios going on from every campus in the Southwestern Athletic Conference.
Yeah.
Good point.
So I know we've talked a lot about SWAC. Zach, you mentioned the MEAC. One team I'm interested in, just because their quarterback looked phenomenal, but he was at the D2 level last year. Hampton's Isaiah Freeman. I'm curious if he is somebody who can help Hampton, because Hampton looked pretty good last year. Took a big step forward under a new head coach. I'm wondering if he could be the guy to kind of help them get over the hump and actually be a quarterback, a HBCU quarterback, to kind of elevate that legacy.
It's going to probably come down to the weapons around him, and also too, I just don't know how good the defense is going to be. Like when you look at their roster breakdown, they have one significant contributor coming back at running back, two at wide receiver, but they weren't the number one options last year. Two tight ends, but he is going to be protected. They got 4 offensive linemen projected to return as of right now that played 200 or more snaps last year, so that's really good. But defensively, man, they got 4 significant contributors returning. I think 1 or 2 starters at the most, and so. Man, that's a lot to ask, especially at the line of scrimmage when you open up week 1 against Jackson State. That's not the school that you want to develop your interior defensive line against, right? That's not the best matchup for them. But they did do a lot in the portal. They actually brought in a ton of D2 kids. They brought in Sam Young from Central State, Tavon Burrows from Texas A&M Kingsville, Anthony Hightower from Lenore Ryan. They brought in another kid, Harold O'Neal from Shepherd at linebacker too, who's really, really good. So they lived out of the portal this year. And what they did is, I would rather have a kid from Shepherd who was an all-conference defensive player of the year level player than I would a kid that dropped down from Alabama, Auburn, LSU that has never played. I'll take a kid who has proven on the field, regardless if it's NAIA, D3, D2. I would rather take a risk on that kid than an unproven FPS transfer. But they also, too, added Jalen Walker from Furman at wide receiver, Maxwell Moss from James Madison at wide receiver as well. So that they got some options, guys. I just think for Freeman, I don't question his ability to play at this level. I really just question the talent around him, because they just were ravaged by the portal, and also 2 guys who had their eligibility expired after last season.
And look, whoever starts at quarterback for Hampton, man, they're going to have their mind right as they go into Jackson State, which I imagine will probably be about a 5-6 o'clock kickoff, give or take, inside of that wonderful atmosphere. And then on top of that, remember, Jackson State's coming off a SWAC championship, Celebration Bowl. So those J-State fans are going to be loud and rowdy and ready to bring the Hampton team in there and throw them off for their game and whatnot. So that'll definitely be something. You got to have some sort of confidence building, which means that preseason camp competition is going to be something. And hey, if first guy is up and doesn't make it happen, next man up. You better be ready for a situation, especially for a game that'll be aired nationally on HBCU Go as well.
Yeah.
Go
ahead, Pooh.
No, I was gonna switch topics. If you
yeah, that's what I was gonna go ahead and get into the new coaches. So I guess we could kind of take it team by team and bounce back and forth between the two of y'all. I'll start with you, Blue. They got a lot going on at the university, not even football related, but when you lose your head coach, who you thought you found a way to keep originally, and then very late in the cycle, he leaves Tennessee State. How do they rebound, I guess, because last year wasn't really a successful year in a lot of their eyes. They had some games where they should have won and they didn't find the ways to win, and I think they thought they might have had a shot at the playoffs, originally going into that year. But how do they kind of get back to that under Coach Barlow?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you can call it any Tennessee State fan that called last year not a success. I would question exactly what they were watching. I mean, it was just a tough draw, man. Like the fact that you were one of the last 4 in and had to go to Montana in the first round, like, I mean, what luck. It's just brutal, right? And the fact that this was the first year that they seeded the top 16 seeds, if it's unseeded, you probably get a way easier matchup and you possibly win that game or even have a chance to host. So, again, and I said it when I was on the show earlier, I guess last month. I just think this year is a wash, man. Like whatever Barlow gives you, man. Because I do think there's some possibles in there. We kind of hit on those, but if you get 4 or 5 wins and you're somewhere in the middle of the OVC Big South, I'm taking that every day and twice on Sunday with what he had to overcome. Because you got to look at what they lost. I mean, they are returning like 2 starters from this team.
Yeah, that's what I'm
That's
saying.
it.
How do you get back to where you were when you're not bringing nothing back?
And so I think last year was super successful, and that's what kind of made Eddie's departure almost like a gut punch. Like, obviously, you knew Eddie was shopping around because you heard him linked to so many jobs.
Yeah.
But it was like, if you're a Tennessee State fan, because I was on here telling you guys, I was the one driving the bandwagon for Tennessee State. I'm like, guys, it's going to hit. Like, they're going to be good. And then they got hurt. And then they would lose a close game. And then they would and it was like every year they were just right there. And then this year they finally get it done. If Eddie comes back, Brandon Fisher comes back, and they bring what they were supposed to bring back, guys, this team's the heavy favorite in the OVC Big South with what they had coming back before Eddie left. So for me, it was just a gut punch for the Tennessee State fans because you finally had the momentum that you've been striving for. But for me, I think one is quarterback. Because obviously Tevin was going to come back. He initially, after Barlow was hired, said he was coming back, and then he transfers to PV unexpectedly. So what do you do at quarterback? I do think they have a solid nucleus in the front 7 with some young guys that they've developed. But I'll say this, they've done a heck of a job in the transfer portal and on the recruiting trail. Guys, they have 90-plus players coming back on the roster now. They've really reloaded and they've really leaned into this rebuild with Barlow. I don't know what the record is going to be, and it might not be pretty, but I'm telling you guys, they're going to have a product on the field where they catch somebody you're not expecting. And then year 2, man, they should be expecting to compete again at the top of the conference.
Gotcha.
And I'm going to look at it like this. All right, August 30th, you host North Carolina A&T. September 6th, you got the juggernaut known as North Dakota State coming to Nashville, in which the Bison fans are going to come as well. And then after that, you got Alabama A&M on September the 13th, before you get a bye, and then you start up on conference play. I really think, if they can get out of those first 3 games somewhat healthy and then go into that bye week before they actually start off OVC Big South play, then I think a lot of things could be going in the right direction for Coach Barlow and company. But, for the most part, those first 3 are definitely going to really tell the story as far as like where they stand and what that coaching staff was able to do in such a short time, especially with Eddie leaving and then Reggie really taking over in the middle of the spring near the, So I think those first 3 weeks will definitely tell the tale on what's going to happen. But also, I'm going to say this too, considering the fact that you start the season off with 3 straight home games against, legitimate opponents that the fan bases, give you a thumbs up on or whatever, you're going to make some money. So financially, the athletic department should be pretty straight, there. And, if I want to skip all the way down, they got Howard for homecoming as well. So there's also a season that things could look good for Tennessee State financially from a football athletic situation. Now, can the product on the field match that? We'll just have to see. But I'm telling you, keep an eye out on what happens after those 3 weeks as you go into the bye and before you start conference play in the later part of September.
Yeah. I'm going to skip the obvious, Mo, and I'm going to go to Valley, because Valley made a late coaching change as well. I don't even know if I can say it's late. It was more surprising because I think a lot of us saw a little bit of momentum that Coach Wade was making. And then he departs, and then they bring in Coach Buckley. Thoughts on that? Or is it just Valley going to be Valley? Or I mean, how do we take that?
I'll go first on this one. I don't want to say Valley's going to be Valley. I really, really don't, just because I do know what they were working with in the previous times and whatnot. I mean, Terrell Buckley, I remember him as a player, both in college and in pros. I'm just hoping that like his competitive competitive insights that he had as a player has translated over to, being a coach now on a collegiate level. And we'll find that out pretty early, like right off the bat. They play Southern at home a week after Southern has already played, one game, with that. So I think that he can try to mold his guys into what he wants, but we know the narrative. It's not the easiest place to get recruits to come to and whatnot. So he's going to have to whip his team up and whip his team into some good shape and see what happens. Who knows? It might be a variation of some people kind of overlook what they're doing, and maybe they have some great players that may lose a game here or there by a small margin, and then boom, you overlook them, and then they pull an upset. So we definitely will see what goes on with that. I'm actually really interested here, Coach Terrell Buckley at SWAC Media Days, just to really see, what he's got going on, because while he really hasn't been that vocal on social media as far as, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But I've been seeing him say, hey, we signed this person's coming, or whatever. So that's why I'm interested to see what he's going to say about what he's working with the team in 2025.
I'm going to be the bad guy, I guess. I don't know what y'all want me to say about it. I mean, they're going to win 1-2 games maybe. And then cue up the hype train next year, baby. It's going to be the same thing. You're going to have like 4 or 5 media members saying they're going to win 7 games, and then they're not going to win 7 games. Guys are going to win maybe 2 to 3. And then guess what, guys? Next year after that, hype train again. They're going to win 2-3 games again. At the end of the day, it's not their fault. They just don't like it. And I hate to be, and I know people get so upset and they're like, oh my God, just because they're bad at sports doesn't mean they have to drop down. It's like in this new age of the house settlement and scholarship limits, Valley has no shot at competing Division I athletics in any sport. None. Like, they're not going to be good at anything unless something really, really changes. And of course, it's not all their fault with the institutional racism, with funding and Mississippi State government and IHL and all that. But at the end of the day, guys, that they are not going to compete at the Division I level. Like, they don't even have enough scholarships to get FBS games right now. And you got certain SWAC schools talking about 105 scholarships. Y'all know what happens when that goes on the field?
Yeah.
It's not going to be pretty.
Yeah. That's a conversation for another day on Valley, but let's bounce to the MEAC. They got a couple new coaches. I guess you could say celebrity coaches.
Yeah.
We
you can do both.
You definitely can say that.
Yeah,
We're with you.
I want to do them separately because I feel like, not to quote Erica, I guess one of them taking it serious, and we know they're taking it serious, and the other one we'll find out, I guess. But let's start with the one we know for sure is taking it serious. Mike Vick, what's expectations for his first year as the head coach of Norfolk State?
I think they're going to be really good. I'm going to go ahead and throw my hat in the ring there. I think they're going to be a lot better than people expect. Out of the 2 hires, I thought this one was the better hire anyway. We can maybe talk about why, like, when we get to the next team. But again, I always look at have your transfers played at the previous institution, and they added a lot of guys that played at their previous stop. And we talked about all the guys Hampton lost is because they're at Norfolk State. They signed like 6 Norfolk State, 6 Hampton guys at Norfolk State. It was stupid. They just like robbed them blind. Like, all the guys they wanted from Hampton, they just went and took. And then on top of that too, that they're projected to return, I think, like 9 or 10 guys that played over 200 snaps last year on the defense. They got for a head coaching change, they didn't lose hardly anybody. They have a ton of offensive talent coming back too, especially along the offensive line and at the skill position. They signed one of the best classes in FCS in terms of transfer portal. I think Mike Vick and the staff coaching, I don't know, right? I think their offensive coordinator is very proven. He was tied into that old Dominion team that right before they transitioned from FCS to FBS that was putting up stupid numbers. So maybe it works, but I still want to see in-game management, because we know that wins and loses games. We've seen a lot of teams, especially in the SWAC, right, out of conference, especially, where 1 or 2 bad coaching decisions will cost you a game where you might be the more talented team. That's what I'm looking for with Vic and those guys. It's just, what does game management look like, in-game coaching decisions, because I think the talent is going to be there. And I think right now, looking on paper, there's an argument to be made that they're the second best team in the MEAC.
Yeah, I think Mike Vick walks into a good situation and inherits a pretty decent ball club for the most part. Added some other good pieces, and then on top of that, yes, I know Coach Dawson Odoms didn't have the record to show from Norfolk State, but me knowing him personally, for the guys that Michael Vick is keeping from that regime, those kids are going to be disciplined. I know that for a fact. Like Odoms does not play when it comes to the discipline aspect. Now it's just a matter of the buy-in. What are you going to get from the student athletes that are now playing under the great Michael Vick in a sense. So I definitely have them as a top 2 team in the mix for sure. And who knows? The MEAC championship may be decided on October 25th when Norfolk State plays host to South Carolina State. So you just do not with that one. I know that's like the beginning of the MEAC, but who knows in that sense? Because we know what South Carolina State will be, bringing to the forefront as the reigning champs with Coach Chennis Berry. And if I remember correctly, what he said, the mailman got to go to work. So we'll see if the mailmen go to work in that first game against Norfolk State, or will Norfolk State come through and represent for Spartan Legion as you go with that. But like I said, when it comes to Michael Vick and company, if they handle business there, then they have that short week the next week when they take on Delaware State in Philly, and then they got NC Central. If they handle business those first 3 weeks, it might be over for the rest of the MEAC in a sense, unless we have some crazy situations that happen. It's college football. We have crazy things that happen all the time. But when you look at it from an outlook, that it's a good possibility. So I think one of the best things that will happen for Norfolk State is the fact that they'll have a pretty tough non-conference, and then you get the defending champs in your first MEAC game to kind of be like either put up or shut up, quite frankly.
Yeah. Let's talk about the other side of that.
Hold on,
Delaware
Miss Faye.
State.
Wait up, Miss Faye. I say South Carolina State, Norfolk, and NC Central are the top 3 in the mix. And because all of them play each other in those first couple of weeks, that's how we're going to know what's going on in that scenario. So, yeah, I don't need Josh texting me because, Lord have mercy, that'll be something that'll take all night long in that sense, all in all. But shout out to the schedule makers for kind of making that happen in the first couple of weeks as well. So we'll see what goes on. Remember, North Carolina Central has a chance to kind of prove themselves early on with the MEAC SWAC challenge and throw some things in there as well.
If he do text you, tell him the MEAC ain't got good church. Anyway, we go. But nah, the other side of that, Delaware State. As Wayne said, Delaware State equals 2 wins. We know Deshaun Jackson took over. She said she agree. Deshaun Jackson took over, and it has been hype video after hype video after hype video on social media. They're trying to push ticket sales, and that's it.
Y'all can tell me. Because, they've been promoting ticket sales, but they ain't been promoting the players they've been signing. I think they're going to be really good in the skill position. Yeah. I believe what they have coming back at running back, quarterback is going to be pretty good. Wide receiver will be okay. The problem is I just don't know what they're going to have in the line of scrimmage on either side. I don't know what they're going to have at edge, defensive tackle, across the offensive line. And at the end of the day, you got to win games there. Like you aren't just going to be able to outspeed everybody on the outside. And at the end of the day, D-Jack's not the one lining up out there at wide receiver. So I'm a little bit more worried about Delaware State than I am Norfolk. And I just don't think people are giving D-Jack a fair shot. I hear all the hype, right? And they're going to win 5, 6, 7, 8. They're possibly going to win the MEAC for some people. And it's like, do you guys realize he's taking over Delaware State? Like he's not stepping into Central or South Carolina State or anything. Like he's taking over the valley of the MEAC. That's what we're talking about. And he's going to win the conference year one. He's going to win 6, 7 games. Like, I just don't think so. Like I'd be stunned if they won more 4 games next year.
like Blue said, I'm worried about the play in the trenches. I really, really am. I do think that they have great skill position players. I've seen wide receivers and running backs be signed here, there, and everywhere. But going through the gauntlet of playing Delaware, Albany, Bowie State, St. Francis, Sacred Heart, Monmouth, Southern Connecticut, before you even get into conference play, and then you begin that with North Carolina Central. Yeah, I'm worried about the play in between the trenches. Let alone will there be enough trenches to even make it to MEAC play as well.
Yeah. Well, let's head back down south to the SWAC, and you want to talk about bringing in players. I don't know if anybody brought in more players than Prairie View and their new head coach, who, all due respect, has done a great job at his previous stops. And he's shown that he's a winner, but can he do it at PV? That's the question. What say you, Mo?
Man, I'm very impressed with what Coach Tremaine has been doing thus far. I mean, yeah, he definitely has been doing some great things, and of course, his last couple of stops have been solid. Let alone, he was at Valdosta. If you know anything about D2 football, then for sure they're definitely handling this. I heard an interview that he did with Kim Rashad not too long ago, and look, if he practices what he preached, and then that rolls into those players, then he's going to have the type of players that run through the brick wall for sure. It's just a matter of what we talk about. It's talking season. So until you actually see everything transfer over to the solid play of things, that's what I'm very interested to see. Because, I mean, they definitely have made some waves in the transfer portal. And, I'm not saying he's rebuilding Prairie View, because it's not like Prairie View has been sad. Like most of us know Prairie View's recent history. And I say recent, like over a 30-year stretch or whatever. Y'all know about the streak and stuff. But, like, he's taking over a program that's pretty competitive, and he's putting his footprint on it. He's from the Houston area, so he's got a good rapport with a lot of those folks in that scenario. And honestly, if we see a scenario where it's, mid to late October and, we see Prairie View and Southern kind of going at it in the West, I would not be surprised in when it comes to the Panthers definitely going up against the Jags for supremacy in the West.
Yeah. Okay. So, I'm a little torn on the whole situation, right? Because I do think people are getting carried away with what he's saying, right? Because part of me feels like, what did you guys want him to say? Did you guys want him to come into the conference and be like, we're gonna be terrible, guys? We're gonna be the old PV of old, man, just losing and we don't believe we can win anything. Like this is a guy that has competed for national championships. What did you think he thought about himself? Like, why is anybody shocked here? And in his mind, and I don't blame him. I mean, he was winning in arguably one of the best D2 conferences in the country. If you know anything about D2 football, like he wasn't playing in the NEC of D2. He was playing like the Missouri Valley Big Sky of D2. So I don't understand why people are so taken aback about his confidence here. And I think the thing that's happened is, and it's been very, very funny. I think when you look at his initial interviews, and you guys maybe have seen this in the media, his first two interviews, his press conference, everybody was like, God, I love him, man. We need more of this in the SWAC. We need more coaches promoting themselves. We need more coaches that are this confident and this open and talk like this. Guys, and you've seen this kind of evolve over the past few weeks. Now those same fans are like, God, will he ever shut up? Like, I hope he loses. Like, who does he think he is? Why is he talking like this? The switch up was very, very subtle for a lot of fans, I think, in the space. And what has happened was, I think only really two coaches in recent memory, right, that have really come out and spoke like this. You had one in Dion, who is Dion, right? We're not going to compare him to Dion, but Maynard was like that too.
Oh, yeah.
But Maynard would talk crazy. And we saw what happened when the results didn't back up Maynard's talk. And I just question whether people are going to, because all I hear is if he doesn't win, we're gonna let him know, right? What happens if he wins? Is the disrespect going to be as loud if he wins coming in? And that's my question, because I understand because I've heard so many people just talk about how you can't win in the transfer portal. You can't do this. You can't come in year one and win. Guys, do you know how many coaches in the West have won their first year? Both of Southern's last coaches won the West in their first year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Like the West is not good. Well, what makes you think he can't walk through the West? Because I think right now, roster wise, they have arguably the best roster in the West right now. And because I think if you look at their transfer portal class without the bias of you're just an angry fan because you don't like how he's talking, they by far signed the best transfer portal class of any HBCU school, and it's not even close. I mean, they have so much experience that they brought in and contributors at every level. I think Prairie View is going to be really, really good. And I don't think, let me pause here. I don't think you should expect to win the Celebration Bowl year one. Like, when did that become the standard for first year head coaches? If he gets to the SWAC championship and loses to Jackson, I don't know about y'all. That's an A+ year for Prairie View for me. From where they were, because here's what's going to happen. He's going to get to the he's going to get to the SWAC championship and lose, and everyone's going to be like, "Oh my God, look at all the trash he was talking." He was like, he just won a division championship in his first year. What happens now on the transfer portal, right? And it was funny because he put out those rules, for the transfer portal, and everyone was like, "Oh, he's not going to sign anybody." He signed a lot of good players that didn't care about those rules that everybody was up in arms about. And so I do think we got to put in perspectives. I think his talk has made it where everyone's putting these Celebration Bowl or bust, expectations on him. If he wins the West next year, that's A+, and he backed up everything he said this offseason, in my opinion. And I think it's very, very possible that he could do it.
Yeah. The other, I have to say, if that was 1A, 1B great hire for the SWAC, Sam Shade coming to A&M for Miles, the fit, everything with that. Thoughts on that hire, and we can start with you, Zach.
Another slam dunk hire. And then also too, the thing I'm most curious about with Sam Shade is we've seen offense really not be the issue for A&M. It's been defense. You bring in a guy in Sam Shade that you feel like is always going to have a good defense. It's in his DNA that he is a defensive guy. But now the problem is, are you going to be able to surround yourself with the offensive minds to keep that offense going, right? Because you had some turnover on that offensive staff. And then the other thing too is they don't have the luxury of Tremaine and some of these other first-year head coaches being in the West. If you're going to get there, you got to go through Jackson, FAMU, Alabama State. So the expectation has completely shifted. I still think Sam Shea is going to need a year. Like, the expectation for Bulldog fans shouldn't be, let's go win the SWAC East next year. The expectation should be, let's win 6-7 games and let's compete well against the top of the conference. Let's set ourselves up. Let's not get blown out by Jackson. Let's not get blown out by FAM. Let's win the Magic City Classic, because I think that's doable. And if you do that, I think you check off all the boxes if you're Alabama A&M. And the biggest question for Sam Shade is, I think defensively they brought in a lot of good D2 talent. They had a handful of transfers that could potentially go in there and start. It's the quarterback decision, because, guys, how many head coaches have we seen in the SWAC ruin their tenures by making the wrong decision at quarterback? The list is endless. Look at Southern. How many Southern head coaches would still have a job if they just made the right decision at quarterback? Even the guy who's currently there now, Graves, if he doesn't make the right decision at quarterback, he could be gone after this year. They'd fire Dooley a year after he went to the SWAC championship, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. So you have to make the quarterback decision. You got Quad Brown, you got Higgins. That, to me, defines his year one. If you make the right quarterback decision and win a handful of the games, great year for Shade. You set yourself up for a really, really good year too. To me, that's what I'm looking for most out of Alabama A&M, and also how much can he improve the defense year one? Because we think we all four of us expect it to take a big leap in year two, but how much was he able to do with one off season of recruiting, and how much better will that defense perform with him and his staff?
Yeah, man. Well, of course, I'm here in Huntsville, so I cover Alabama A&M primarily on my regular 9 to 5, and clearly the focus for Coach Shade has basically been all about getting better on the field, off the field, in the weight room, in the community. That's what he's really, really been preaching to the fans, to the alumni, and to even to the student body. When you look at the team just in general, I mean, offensively, I mean, he's bringing Antonio Carter and also Dennis Alexander with him, two guys who have had success, in their previous stints overall. I mean, right now, as I mentioned, Quad Brown is probably QB1 going in, but Mekhi Higgins will definitely make a push for that as well, and we'll see how things go or whatever with that. Now, overall, I think he turns out to be one of the better hires they've had, just collectively, and also Coach Shea kind of falls into the place where, hey, right now, Alabama A&M as a whole, university-wise and athletics, they're going through the big energy movement. You had it with Coach Dawn Thornton with women's basketball, and then Sam gets hired for football. Now you got Dante Jaskin with basketball. You saw what Dawn did in year one. Now I think they're thinking that it can kind of roll over to the other side. Now, one good thing, though, for Sam Shea, he's a University of Alabama guy, won a national championship in the early 90s under Coach Gene Stallings, played in NFL, had a number of good years as a pro, and then he's had a lot of good connections as a as a high school coach here and also as a college coach. So those connections go far and wide when it comes to recruiting and really just, knowing what it takes to bring these guys to the next level and try to get some other guys to the following level overall. And I'm going to even go out and say this. At the end of the day, because he's Sam Shade, former Alabama player or whatever, who knows? University may get some athletic donations from somebody who loved them some Sam Shade who played for Alabama. You never know in those situations, but I think that's going to be something that plays along with it. But they definitely will have a very tough season because of that schedule and the gauntlet overall, especially coming through the East. But if they can find ways to get marginal wins here and there and maybe even crack a W this year against Eddie Robinson and ASU at the now Amazon Magic City Classic. Yes, it is now Amazon for all those that do not know. The Amazon Magic City Classic in late October, then that definitely can help them build the brand moving forward with Alabama A&M.
Yeah. Go ahead, Ant. My bad.
No, go ahead. I'm good.
No, I was gonna say it's the last head coach, North Carolina A&T. I think that was also a great hire. I just think he's got a lot. He's got a major uphill battle. And they are the valley of the CAA, if you want to go that route. But no, that's a major uphill battle.
Yeah, 1-2 wins. Call it a day.
Yeah, Gibbs has had some success at Fort Valley. I hope he's able to bring over at least a fraction of that success over to North Carolina A&T. I think he played at North Carolina Central, so he kind of knows the area here or there. But yeah, CAA, that's still just going to be a tough scenario. And of course, A&T's in a tough scenario overall that I think that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day when it comes to their placement and moving forward with some things. So I think they're just going to have to be in a situation where Gibbs not only going to have to find a way to upset some folks, but also find some other wins that helps out for the long run and long term of that actual program.
Yeah. All right, Zach, switching gears a little bit, of the three HBCU independents, as I like to call them, which one are you most interested in this season?
That's a tough question, because I would probably say Tennessee State, just because they've had the most success recently, and I think they nailed the hire, and it just has so many question marks, right? Because what happens if they do jump out and go 2-1 and beat A&T and A&M? Because listen, they're not beating North Dakota State, so 2-1's the ceiling. If they jump out and go 2-1, one, what does that say about A&T? Two, what does that say about Sam Shade and A&M? And then three, most importantly, what does that say about Tennessee State? If they can go beat an A&M team who we all kind of think is going to be mid-level in a competitive SWAC East, man, how big of a win would that be for Tennessee State? And then you look across the OVC Big South, outside of probably UT Martin and Tennessee Tech, who I think are by far the two favorites right now. Tennessee Tech is going to be so good. Everybody else has massive question marks. So as much as like maybe I'm not confident in them winning those games now, there's a lot of possibles in that stretch where if Western Illinois doesn't figure out quarterback, they could suck again. Lindenwood has yet to prove they can win consistently at the Division I level. I mean, Charleston Southern is terrible. So you have games where you should, one, expect to win. Two, if you can just keep it close and win some close games, you can look up and Tennessee State's at 5 wins. You're like, this is a team that lost everybody. And they're still finding a way to be in the middle of the conference. So Tennessee State, by far, is the most interesting team to me out of all the independents.
Yeah, Zach, I'm happy to agree with you as well. I think Tennessee State, especially under Coach Reggie Barlow, has the best opportunity to make some waves. As I mentioned earlier in the show, I mean, those first 3 weeks will definitely tell the tale on how things could go, especially if they could find success on the field, go into a bye week, and then get ready for that conference slate. I think Tennessee Tech and Southeast Missouri State are probably going to be the favorites for the 2025 season, give or take in that conference. But Tennessee State, I think, will be in the mix or in the running. And of course, I played against Coach Barlow when he was the head coach at Alabama State in the late 2000s. And of course, when I was working in Montgomery, I got a chance to, cover him for a number of years. I mean, Coach Barlow is a guy, he just, he's a player's coach. He listens to the players and understands what they need to do to find ways to elevate certain situations. And I think the fact that he found success on the XFL, USFL, whatever we were calling the leagues he was coaching in or whatever, with the DC's Defenders. I think that him having that success was good, but there was always rumors that he wanted to always make his way back down to the collegiate level. And now this is a perfect opportunity for him to do so. And by doing that, I think he has a chance to really, really make some waves and get the Tiger fan base energized with a pretty good schedule that also has some opponents that the fan bases want to see as well. Y'all know about that conversation too. We ain't got to go along or whatever with that. But I really, really think this will be a very interesting year for Tennessee State. And I mean, if it's like mid to late October, early November, and they're in the running, I would not be surprised. It's just a matter of can you make it happen in 2025 with Barlow and the Tigers in Nashville?
I would say like a strong number 2, just because we both hit on Tennessee State. I think Hampton would be my other one that I'm kind of curious, and we kind of hit on it earlier. It's just a quarterback situation because he's so dynamic. He's proven he was, if I'm not saying he was the offensive player of the year in that conference or newcomer of the year, like he won some big award while he was at Lincoln. Guys, I'm not picking this game, and I think Jackson will win pretty handily. What happens if he goes out there and leads Hampton and they beat Jackson in Jackson week 1? Could you imagine the fallout of that? Now, obviously, the fallout
social media would melt down, bro.
Social media would melt down, but obviously, it wouldn't have a longer impact on the conference, right? Because Jackson could go on a run like they did when they lost to Grambling last year and win it all anyway. But the SWAC has taken so many eyesores in terms of out of conference play. I know there was like that big social media thing this past week where the SWAC's record was publicized, and it's kind of embarrassing. That game is so big, and for Jackson to be such a big favorite to get up, because if I'm not mistaken, that would be the first win over the CAA for the SWAC.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, something like that. Massive,
right? And so I think Jackson winning that game does so much for the conference, and I already know people in the chat are going crazy, and I've already said Jackson wins handily. You see, even when I start with Jackson's going to win, we'd lose it. But no, I mean, I think if Hampton, even if you're competitive in that game, how much better do you feel if you're Hampton? If you can keep it within 7, guys, in Jackson on August 30th, you keep it within 7. You look at your schedule, it's like, how many more teams are we going to face at the top 25 team like Jackson on the road in August? You've got to feel good if you're Hampton.
Yeah. So Zach, the key is you got to start off with the bad, then you got to finish.
There you go. I gotta end with Jackson by 40.
Jackson by 40.
There you go.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask this because we've talked about the East and how tough it is and everything. We've seen just about every conference in college football do this. Why hasn't the SWAC gone divisionless?
No. There's no reason not to at this point, right? I mean, like travel, and yeah, A&T Roy was right. Jackson did beat Campbell. Wait, no, was Campbell in the CAA at that point? I think they were in the Big South.
I think they were in the Big South still at the time.
Yeah, so A&T Roy, they don't count. But no, I would say it's time, man. Like you look at all these other conferences, especially P4 conferences, divisions are out.
Yeah.
Everywhere, right? And I think it promotes so much parity in the conference because everybody at that point would hopefully play, mostly everybody, right? And I think also too and this is sorry, we're going to incorporate the whole conversation here. Get rid of divisions. FCS is now approved for 12 game schedule starting next season full time. Get rid of divisions, play 9 conference games, and keep the SWAC championship. That way, we don't have Southern play in Mississippi Valley for an out-of-conference game. We don't have Alcorn play in Alabama A&M for an out-of-conference game. Jackson and Southern don't fall off the schedule when it's one of the most historic rivalries in the conference. Like, it's not this hard. And I feel like we keep making it super hard to understand, like, why this needs to happen. And I keep hearing the same thing, like, oh, it's just because FAM didn't get into the Celebration Bowl, those few years where they just lost to Jackson State. This is a bigger conversation because I would argue you look from, 2019 onward, are we confident that the 2 best teams have played for the SWAC championship in any of those years?
No.
Oh, no. I can tell you no. Not the 2 best teams, no.
So at the end of the day, don't we want the 2 best teams at the end of the year playing?
Well, wouldn't having the 2 best teams play in the SWAC championship game, in theory, wouldn't that help your chances in winning the Celebration Bowl?
Yes. Because you would want your 2 best. Because, you look back. So, let's just say that South Carolina State team that beat Dion's first team.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, there was other extenuating circumstances, offensive line play and stuff. If Jackson finds a way to lose that SWAC championship game, do any of us 4 think, what was it, PV that year is going to the Celebration Bowl and winning a damn thing?
No.
Or would y'all rather see Jackson FAMU play in Jackson for the SWAC championship and the winner go and play the Celebration Bowl?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't understand what the SWAC's missing here, and how much better would it be to have non-conference games? Because everyone talks about income and revenue and money. How much better would it be to have an extra conference game that actually matters? Now Jackson State Grambling last year actually matters, and how much more interesting is the conference race if Jackson has a conference loss?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
No, it certainly is a good point. I think the bigger question to answer the question, it's more so of the people in charge. And I'm not even talking about the SWAC office, the folks in Birmingham. I know people will be quick to be like, oh, Dr. McClellan. No, it's really the athletic directors and the presidents. Those 24 individuals, they have to all be on one accord to make a change. Once they are on accord, Dr. McClellan just signs his name on the dotted line in a sense. He hears them out, but they all make the decision. So all of those individuals have to be on one accord to make change. And, sometimes with change, lots of people don't like it.
Well, let's be honest here. If you're an AD in the West, what benefit is it to you to go divisionless?
0.
Exactly.
I mean, if we're gonna say the best teams in the past 3-4 years, the top 2-3 teams for the most part have been out the East with FAM, Jackson State, Alabama State. Like those been the kind of the top 3 in the conference the past few years. Why would I give up my opportunity to make a SWAC championship game just so the East can get 2 teams in every year? It makes no sense.
I would almost argue, and I agree. I completely agree. I would almost argue that it would kind of, and something Blue talked about in the beginning, it would force the other teams to step their game up.
Of course.
I know it's just theory, but
I mean,
because I mean, if you're in the West, let's be real. If you're in the West, 5-3, maybe even 4-4, depending on who you beat.
Yeah, no, just kidding.
but this the like so. All right, so you saying it's gonna make everybody step their game up, or is it that certain teams would feel like they don't have a chance to make the playoffs or the Celebration Bowl or the SWAC championship because they know the two juggernauts are in the East? You know what I mean? Like at least now, whenever the West is wide open, every fan base in the West feels like they got a shot to make the SWAC West. I mean, to win the SWAC West and make the SWAC championship game. If you go divisionless, half of those teams don't have faith that they could do that no more.
And fellas, I can tell you this. Going back to my days as an undergrad at Southern playing for Coach Richardson in the mid to late 2000s, there was talks about that. And one thing I heard from some other folks, the early days of social media, they were kind of saying like, well, what if you have a situation where you got Grambling and Southern as number 1 and number 2, and then they play in the Bayou Classic, and then they got to turn around and play the next week, or Jackson Alcorn being 1 and 2 and got to turn around and play the next week. Those are things I heard years ago, and I'm not saying those are main problems that are still up today, but I kind of do wonder if that's a thought process that's still kind of being talked about amongst the individuals who have to sign off and agree on a change like that.
Yeah, like for so many years, the winner of the Bayou Classic won the SWAC West.
Yes.
If it was divisionless, that might not have been the case. The Bayou Classic is still the Bayou Classic, but whenever the winner of that game goes to the SWAC championship game, it means more. If you take away the divisions, that game don't have the same stakes because the winner don't got a chance to go to. You see what I'm saying? Like. So,
no, I know exactly what you're saying.
I feel like some of these fan bases in the West feel like if they got a shot to go to the SWAC championship, they're more engaged as a fan base.
They might be more engaged, but at the end of the day, and we see this across every conference of college football, there's ebbs and flows for teams. Like, we fast forward 10 years from now, what's to say that Grambling, Southern, and Alcorn aren't the 3 best teams in the SWAC? And then we're right back to the whole conversation. So I think at the end of the day, I think divisionless college football's been the move for a while. And like you see it all across football. Like there's a reason that there's only one FCS conference with divisions right now. And how many FBS conferences are there with divisions now? Like only maybe a handful, as I want to say all the P4 conferences are divisionless now.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And then I want to say the AAC is divisionless. If I'm not mistaken,
the only one
Sunbelt has divisions.
Sunbelt has divisions, and I think Conference USA has divisions.
Yeah, and then MAC is divisionless now, if I'm not mistaken, starting this year, I want to say. So, but like regardless, there's a whole lot of conferences that are going away from divisions, and the Sun Belt's talked about getting rid of divisions.
Yeah,
and so I just don't see why. I just don't even see the argument against it, because I understand what you're saying, but really and truly, that's really not an argument at the end of the day. Like eventually there's going to be some sort of pendulum swing. Like Jackson is not going to win every single conference title from now for the next 30 years. That's just not how college football works. Something's going to swing back. And I just think for the SWAC as a whole, the thing is you want to make the most money possible. Why not have the SWAC championship game be the must-see game? Because I'll be honest with you guys, I really haven't cared about a SWAC championship game in a minute. Like it has been like think about Jackson Southern's always so hype, right? They faced in the SWAC championship twice in the past, 2 or 3 years?
Mm-hmm.
How much more hype would that game have been if it was like FAM?
Let me ask you this. Whenever Jackson State played FAM those years whenever they were 1 and 2 pretty much in the SWAC, If the fact that they both gonna make the conference championship game, you know what I mean, does that devalue that regular season matchup?
Nope,
No.
because then you playing for home field.
Yep, playing for home field,
That's fair.
and
That's
if
fair.
you slip it, and if you take that loss, that means you cannot lose another game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you're divisionless, the odds of the second place team having more than 2 losses is very, very minimal. And so no chance you devalue the regular season, in my opinion. None.
Okay.
The one thing I'd like to add to all this too, though, is if this were ever to happen, not saying it won't ever happen or whatever, I just pray that they have every single tiebreaker situated for
Yes.
this. Reason being, I don't know if y'all remember, if who was it last year? When Alabama lost to Oklahoma last year, that opened up a whole lot of things in the SEC to where even people on College Game Day was like, wait, we had to go check with Greg Sankey on how to make this happen or whatever. Because had Alabama beat Oklahoma, it's a whole different scenario, and they could have played themselves into that, you know. So I really, really just hope in a situation where you have a divisionless situation that you have all the rules and tiebreakers in place and ready to go. Heck, we've seen that in the SWAC, you know.
I was just about to say 2 or 3 years ago. It was
exactly. Shout out to Wayne Cartwright for like basically giving us those updates each and every week. Once you got to the month of November, just wondering like, how will this play out if this happens, and how will this play out if that happens, because of either not the amount of games in which you had crossovers or the same opponents or various things. Wayne, I was just about to say the Big 12 had a ridiculous tiebreaker situation this past year, and it all started when Colorado lost to Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you nobody in the world thought that was about to happen. So I just hope that you have your tiebreakers in and situated, because if you don't, then you have a lot of unhappy fan bases and social media is going to blow up like Ant talked about.
Yep.
I really do think the first change is going to be non-conference games, and then we'll talk divisionless SWAC. Because like the Southland's going to 9 games, the Missouri Valley's playing 9 games. I want to say the Big Sky is going to move to 9 games. So that's the move. Because and then I really wish the conference office would do it. They're not going to, right? Because why would they? Can we stop playing some of these like high schools disguised as colleges for out of conference games? Like you play 9 SWAC games in this hypothetical world. You're going to have teams that schedule a 10th SWAC team just because they can, and then they're going to play VLU and then
Lincoln, California,
Lorman Baptist College of the East of it. Like it's going to be something dumb like that. We got to find a way to like promote out of conference scheduling, because this has gotten outrageous.
It's like during basketball season, whenever the first few weeks they play like Ecclesia and schools like that, like East
College
Tennessee
of Biblical Studies.
Yeah, East Tennessee Women's University that has a men's basketball team. Like,
it's pretty much just like a pickup squad. They just went and got those guys from their 9 to 5. It was like, you got a game tonight. Just pack your tennis shoes.
Facts.
I want to say something. So I want to say something, but I'm gonna let it go because I'm not gonna be petty. Man, no, there's no chill. Listen, I want my cousins down south. Listen, if your rivalries are both in the SIAC, I think you need to raise your standards just a little bit. I'm just saying, I get it. Maybe rotate them every other year or something, but can't quit playing both of them every year. All right, we can move on. Go ahead, Ant.
You talking about Bama State?
Hey, you said it, not me.
I'll tell you, the one that they're never going to get rid of is Tuskegee. That's never going away.
They've got rid of them a few times.
They've got rid of them before.
I just can't see that becoming like a permanent. Let's get rid of them.
Yeah, they've got rid of them before. It was actually surprising when a few years ago they got added back to the schedule, and then you realize, wait, you're playing on Labor Day weekend, not Thanksgiving weekend, or Thanksgiving Day technically.
Well, then. Never mind, be quiet.
And then the year they didn't have them, they played like Arkansas Pine Bluff that week. It's like we are really doing the least here with the scheduling.
They've in the last decade they played Pine Bluff, they played Stillman when they still had a football team. They played Miles, and then the crazy thing was Miles had won the SIAC and actually had a high ranking for the playoffs, but they gave up that playoff rank to take the 2 years to play the Turkey Day Classic and get money.
Yeah. If you're gonna talk about Bama State, you got to talk about Morgan being part of the CIAA.
Yes.
Oh, no, yeah, it's
No,
been bad. It's
no,
bad
no, no.
across all the conferences. Like the
Morgan
MEAC.
has, I'm sorry, but they have, for those of you who haven't looked at their schedule, they have, I think it's Central State, Lane, and Virginia Lynchburg,
Yeah.
all 3 weeks in a row. I kid you
Yeah.
not. That second one may be wrong, but I know it's Central State. My bad, Zach. Go
And
ahead.
then Delaware State's got Bowie and like Central Connecticut School of the Blind or something like that.
It's terrible, bro.
It's unbelievable. Like the only schools that like Central will play a D2 school every once in a while because they have that Winston-Salem rivalry. So they'll play, a local school. But then you look at the rest of their schedule, they get Southern and New Hampshire. And like they went in and played Campbell. They played I forgot the other school
Miles,
out
that's what it is.
Elon last year. They'll go play somebody. South Carolina State's done a really good job. Charleston Southern, the Citadel, like they've scheduled a whole lot of schools, SoCon, CAA, things like that. But Morgan State is out here just scheduling anybody at this point.
Man,
It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
Like
Morgan
he
State's
said.
got Central State on September 20th. Then they go to Circle City Classic against Miles on September 27th. Then they got Lynchburg. I'm guessing that must be homecoming in October.
Yeah.
Well, so to be fair for
My bad.
Morgan, they had an FCS school pull out last minute out of conference, I want to say, just due to a scheduling conflict with an FBS school that moved their date. And so I think that happened. Then also, too, Arkansas Pine Bluff pulled out of the Capital City Classic, which forced Miles to take their spot. So to be fair, like one of the problems for Morgan was a SWAC school was too scared to play them and force them to play a D2 school. That's a whole nother conversation.
Hey, speaking of SWAC schools, most interesting SWAC school not named Jackson State.
Is there even a question? It's Prairie View.
Okay. All the transfers. New coach.
Got to find out. And all the talk, like we got to find out what it's about.
Yeah.
And I saw someone in the chat put, we kind of talked about all the what ifs if they win. God, if they lose to Texas Southern week 1,
man, boy.
God, just delete Twitter that day. It's going to be unbelievable.
We're gonna see everybody versus PV that day instead of PV versus everybody. You know what I mean? Like,
delete everything. I just think it's hard not to. Yeah,
it's gonna be a lot of free shirts in Ethiopia. I tell you that,
but. And I'm gonna actually go with Grambling. I mean,
okay.
Like, what is going on up there in Lincoln Parish? I mean, I saw like one interview with Coach Joseph. I think he was like at a camp or something like that, and he talked about the standard and things of that nature. But like, I really ain't seen too much else about the G-men like talking about. Like, I ran across like somebody posting on social like the commercial for buy your season tickets and all that. I really haven't heard much more about the G-men besides, them getting that $1 million to go to Ohio State in week 2.
Yeah.
So what's going down with Mickey?
They're quiet. Them in Texas Southern, they keep their stuff behind like lock, key, vault. You got to get the the eye scan.
You know how like. And when you hire a coach, you go get the next coach you get is the exact opposite. Like Hugh was out here with the Louis luggage and all that kind of stuff, belts on cars and all that. Mickey and like, man, I ain't giving nobody nothing. I ain't even putting a tweet out. You know what I mean? Like Mickey went the exact opposite, bro.
But you're gonna show up in Grambling, they're gonna have a dome over the hole. It's built a whole roof over it. You ain't seeing nothing.
Had them Lululemon tights when he come talk to us. Ran from anyway.
Bro, he didn't interview with anybody on media day last year, if I'm not mistaken.
He
dipped.
Hey, we'll be there, man. He would be gone, man.
I caught him, but that's only because I basically was talking to Travion Scott, and then he walked over to Scott, and I was like, "Hey, can I get him?" And it was like, "Sure." And it was like, "Hey, man, just talk real quick." And then I drew some names that that coach knew or whatever. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I know." I was like, "Man, I got like 5 minutes for you." 5 minutes turned to like 2 minutes, but still ended up getting it. But I did hear that, he was kind of hitting the spots, and then it was gone.
All right. Johnny put this in before we get to the last two questions. Johnny put this in. He says, why is there so much hype about transfer portal guys versus those who stayed put and waited / earned their turn? Does synergistic play count for anything? Maybe I read that wrong.
I mean, I think we are hyping up the guys who waited to stay and play their turn. Like that's why everyone here is so high on Jackson State. That's why I'm personally super high on North Carolina Central because they've returned so many players, and I think Trey Oliver's done a heck of a job with high school development and also talent retainment, which is a whole nother evolution of the game here. But on the flip side too, it's evaluation by because I think there are a few teams in HBC football that did go heavy in the portal that I'm not super high on because they didn't add guys with any playing experience. The transfer portal classes you should hype up are the ones that played at their previous institutions, whether that's NAIA, D3, D2, other FCS programs. Potentially you have a sneaky FBS edition that played a lot, right? Maybe he got hurt, coaching changed, and he just found your way to your university. And so I think it just depends. It's a case-by-case basis. It's not transfer portals the only way, but I think we've all four on here hyped up a few programs that have done it by retaining talent.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me the main thing you said is when you get transfer guys who have playing experience, there's no substitute for experience. Even like being in the system and knowing the system and all that's fine and dandy, but until the lights are on and the bullets are really flying, you don't know what you have in that player. So when you have a guy who's proven that what he can do when the moment is big and it really matters, that's going to take a little bit more precedent over somebody who's just been in the system 2 or 3 years who has potential, that like actually having the realized potential of experience versus, what might be in this guy coming off the bench. I think that's the difference. But to your point, I would rather have a guy who's been in my system for 2 or 3 years over a guy who transferring in who has no experience. Because if neither one of them have experience, give me the guy who's at least been in my system.
Yeah. All right. Mo, did you have anything put on that, or you?
Actually, both Zach and Ant kind of said the same thing, and I've always think about anytime I see a question or comment in those perspectives or whatever. It's sometimes you feel like at the end of the day, there's a reason why certain people are in the portal, and you have to you're taking a risk, you're taking a chance, and you got to be smart about it. And not every kid in the portal is going to be a home run. I mean, you're hoping that sometime, to use baseball terminology, you get a single or a double, or you get a walk, some sort of advancement. But, other times that's just not getting the case. And from a portal standpoint, there are kids who just hop in the portal because they don't want to compete. Yeah. They do not want to compete. And because they don't want to compete, clearly, competition is all about being one of those 11 on the field. And if you're not one of those 11, at least being the one of 22 who has a chance to have the next man up mentality. Coach Richardson used to always say, hey, you understand who the starters are, but always remember there's still an opportunity for you to get on the bus when it comes to traveling.
Yeah.
All right. Now we come to the part of the show. Y'all get the lie if you want to. Conference favorites, MEAC and SWAC. I think it's go ahead. I ain't gonna even.
We can skip the SWAC. I think that's a consensus probably.
Yeah.
Are we picking like who wins the SWAC championship? As if so, is Jackson.
Oh yeah, who in the conference? Like
Jackson.
Yeah, I got Jackson as a favorite, and then the winner of the Southern PV game for Southern's homecoming in October will probably win the West.
Okay.
Yeah.
MEAC.
It's hard for me not to go against South Carolina State again. I do know what Michael Vick is bringing to the table, but I really do like what South Carolina State has been able to do from year one with Chennis, in which he even said it wasn't even his best team, and look what they were able to do. So now that you have a platform to build on, I think the leap from year one to year two will definitely be astounding. But as I mentioned earlier in the show, those first 3 weeks, we're going to know who the MEAC SWAC, who's going to be the MEAC champion, because your favorites all play each other. But right now, I'll give the edge to Chennisberry and company because I think he can turn around and do it again.
Yeah, I'm gonna go the opposite way here. For me, it's a pretty easy decision. I think Central finally gets it done. I really do think that they have a really, really strong possibility to walk through and finish undefeated in conference play. And it's something that they've failed to do the past few years, just had a few bad performances. Like the schedule lines up for them. And I really do think Central should finally give us. I mean, we've been waiting for this matchup for like 2 years.
Yeah.
Jackson, North Carolina Central rematch in the Celebration Bowl. I need it. The fans need it. And that's what we're finally going to get. Trey Oliver, TC Taylor. What a matchup there, but between, and especially with what TC did at Central, I personally think Central walks through the MEAC, Jackson walks through the SWAC, and then we get that matchup in Atlanta. The press conferences are going to be so great if Trey gets back there, because Trey don't hold anything back in those interviews when you ask him his opinion on stuff. I think it'll be great for HBCU football to see both of those teams make it to Atlanta.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's the matchup everybody kind of been waiting to see for a while there. All right, let me ask you this. We know your favorites. Who's your dark horses in each conference?
Bum, bum, bum.
Well, let me ask you this. When you talk about dark horse, you're talking about like a team that either comes out of nowhere or you're talking about a team that'll be in the running but may not actually get to the finish line.
A team that comes out of nowhere.
So who are we excluding? I'm assuming Southern and PV can't be picked.
So I'll say this. Because everybody, the consensus favorite is Jackson State. I'm gonna change it up a little, at least for the SWAC. Who has a chance to win it that we may not be talking about? So anybody in the West or somebody, a couple teams in the East. Stop, Paris.
Well, hey, remember UAPB technically can win it.
That's true.
Yeah, I got I would think, okay, so wording it how Ant did, I think my dark horse would be Alcorn, just as a team that no one's talking about that could emerge. I think if they figure out quarterback, they check a lot more boxes than a lot of people are saying. People are just acting like Alcorn's got us four and just a few random people off the street playing all the other positions, but they return a good bit on the offensive line, top running back, multiple wide receivers. They just got a huge linebacker coming back. Interior defensive line is going to be a lot better, and I think corner is going to be a lot better as well. So I do think Alcorn would be the dark horse, but in the way Pooh worded it, I would probably be FAM or PV the pick there, like, because I don't know if Alcorn is going to go through and win the SWAC, but I think if someone's going to win the SWAC over Jackson, it's either going to be PV, because I think they'll come out the West personally, or FAM will probably be the number 2 team.
Yeah, that's who I was going to ask about, FAM. But go ahead, Mo.
Yeah, I know FAM's got like a 5 or 6 quarterback battle going into the fall, so that'll be quite interesting. All in all, I may kind of sound like a generic in this situation, but what about Bama State? If the fact that Andrew Body is healthy, we know that Eddie Robinson Jr. is always going to have a solid defense. It's just a matter of, can they have the offense to match the intensity of that defense and score some points? I mean, Bama State was on their 5th string quarterback last year, but one thing I'll say about Kareem Key, he was the starting quarterback and he made some things or whatever. But what's to say how much different things could have been if you don't even get to 5th string? So if Body is the man who remains healthy and get that offense going, then I think Bama State will have something to say about the East and potentially the SWAC as well. Now, keep in mind, Bama State will be going to Jackson this year, and I think it is Jackson's homecoming. But if history serves me correct, Eddie Robinson Jr. has beat TC Taylor on Jackson's homecoming before. So,
2 years ago.
Yeah, so keep that in mind as well for both sides of that on that engaging, I'll call it, East rivalry.
Well, this sealed your fate PV versus everybody said Bama State is gonna win East, so that's not gonna happen. You can go ahead and mark that down. Just sealed your fate, Mo.
Okay.
But hey, you what else you got, man? I don't know if you got all those.
Nah, so y'all got Jackson State as the Celebration Bowl champs back to back.
As of July 7th, yes, but
I mean,
mind,
obviously,
like,
this is
in my mind, I really do think, and maybe I'm a little high on Central compared to some people. I really do think it's 1A, 1B. I think Central's a lot closer than people think.
Okay.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk the MEAC dark horse. I'm sorry. So
Norfolk.
I mean, guess it ain't
because we
me.
kind of hit it earlier. Like I think Norfolk would be the one. I mean, just because I don't really consider South Carolina State a dark horse. They won it last year.
Nobody's gonna say Howard.
No.
Morgan.
They might be the worst team in the conference next year, but
yeah, I worry about Morgan's health. I really, really do. I know they're playing, some lower competition, but if you look at Morgan's schedule as well, that travel is really, really going to get to them. Man, like they are going here, there, and everywhere before they even get into a comfortable schedule in the middle part of their season.
Yeah.
Then
I don't know about y'all with Morgan.
D5 schools.
Yeah, they'll win those. But like if I with Morgan, for me, I'm at the point where I'm just gonna say they're not gonna win anything until they prove me wrong.
Yeah.
It's been too many years of hyping them up and their offense showing promise and having good individual players. Like until they show me that they can have a competent offense on the collegiate level, I'm just not going to be a believer of Morgan State. I'll be the hater and be wrong until they actually prove me wrong.
Whose offensive issues are worse? Like Morgan or Southern?
Oh, Morgan by far.
Oh, it's hands down Morgan.
It's not even close.
Yeah, it's hands down Morgan, and I can quote that from their play-by-play guy as well. Like he has told me multiple times that, man, if we could just play a game with just defense, they'll win all the time. But their offense was just.
How can your offense be that bad for so long, man?
Their offense was arguably worse than North Carolina A&T's.
Jeez.
That's why I should have said who had a worse offense, A&T or more. Yeah. I mean, A&T couldn't complete a forward pass for half the season.
No. I mean, it was just so bad at times for Morgan last year. And what's crazy is they had a freshman All-American running back.
Yeah.
I just don't understand how we got here.
No, certainly. Lamont Germany, that's the play-by-play guy for Morgan. He and I talk on a regular, and he said, like, struggling is probably an understatement, or probably not even the best word to describe what their offense usually is. And then, of course, defense will play well, but y'all know the deal. Offense not giving in production, defense gets tired, and
Okay. What about this one? Who's the Morgan of the SWAC? Offensive wise. Good
Bama
defense,
State.
but bad offense.
Bama State.
Bama State.
Probably Bama State because they were basically one-dimensional.
Well, last year I was going to say Grambling.
I don't think Grambling
I know their defense wasn't as great as Morgan State's was, but they got a lot of turnovers last year. They forced a lot of turnovers. They had SWAC Defensive Player of the Year in Jones. They had some guys on that front. Like they defense kind of kept them in games and won games for them because their offense was.
I was going to say that maybe that's a 1A 1B situation then between Graham and Alabama State, because that's literally what happened to Morgan. Their offense just wasn't doing and their defense kept them in games. Bama State situation.
The Bama State Grambling game, literally Grambling won because Alabama State kicker missed the kick.
I just don't know if Grambling's defense was good last year. I'm going to be honest. Like, there's a difference between having a good defense and just forcing a lot of turnovers.
Yeah, they were opportunistic. Yeah,
because I think when you're comparing Morgan in this conversation, like Morgan was like a suffocating, like they actually, until they wore down toward the end of the year, right? Because you had that South Carolina State performance, which was insane, and they just ended up getting hurt. They were shutting teams down. I don't think Grambling ever shut anybody down. They were getting outgained by 200, 300 yards, and then still finding a way to win because they forced 7 turnovers in a game.
That's fair. Yeah, I would agree with that.
And look, I'll say this about Grambling just because I had that Jackson Grambling game. I mean, look, after that game, I'm sitting like, man, Grambling might literally win the SWAC. And then I think a lot
we all said that, yeah.
And then I think a lot of the coaches around the conference were, kind of got that, all right, we know what we need to do to beat Grambling. We need to protect the football. And all of a sudden, like, their turnover margins went literally from north to south because even the situation, their defense may show up and stop them on third down, but they weren't giving the ball away with a fumble or weren't giving the ball away with an interception or a mishap on special teams. And I think eventually that kind of did away with what Grambling was going to do. So they had to go with aggressive play calling, and that didn't work out for the G-men.
Yeah. I agree with that.
All right. And you got anything? You got any more? Because I'm tapped out.
I'm done, man. I'm done. I think we done got all the lies out of these two that we need, man.
Yeah.
I done heard that Hampton beating Jackson State tonight. I done heard all kind of stuff tonight, man.
Hey, listen, Mo, you probably can say the sky is blue the sky is red and green, and people like, well, maybe I don't know. Blue, I don't care what you say tonight. Somebody mad.
Twist that boy.
Blue, you finna be upset. Blue, we gonna show you.
Listen, I get it. Like, we've been pretty good with our preseason predictions over here, so like maybe it's just I don't know, but no, I get it. Like, and I love Miss Diana in the chat. South Carolina State through and through. I understand because to be fair, I didn't pick them last year to come out of the MEAC, and so maybe maybe I was wrong there. And I'm a member of the coalition, definitely. Membership on sale. Just hit me up on Twitter. I got you guys. Making shirts.
Man, I like doing these the preseason predictions. We get a lot of insight into teams, and I think people tell on themselves, not necessarily we joke about the lies, but a lot of people talk about their teams and don't realize that they've really talked about their team and said some of those things. We heard, how such and such position group is going to be a concern, and that's what has killed a lot of teams over the years. Those exact same things that they mentioned during these. So I appreciate y'all for coming through,
yes, sir,
helping wrap this up. But before we go, y'all know what we have to do. Mo, we'll start with you. Tell the people where they can find you, and I know you don't know. Well, maybe you do. The first game you'll be doing this season.
Yeah. So on social media, you can find me at Mo Carter, Fox 54. Also the same thing on Facebook as well. And if you want to check out any of my work, head over to fox54.com. Click that live button. And if you want to even see some more stuff, download the Fox 54 Plus app. You can see various streaming content that we have going on here in the city of Huntsville, primarily covering Alabama A&M University. Most recently, I had a Sunday sit-down with Coach Dawn Thornton, the diva, as she talked about last year and preparing for the upcoming season. I cannot tell you where my first game for the SWAC will be just yet, primarily because we're still waiting for some folks to actually debut their schedules and all that. But I will tell you this: I am definitely touching down in the states of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama this year for games that I will be calling for the Southwestern Athletic Conference with ESPN Plus and the SWAC Digital Network. So stay tuned for that, and I'll probably put it on social media at some point in time.
All right, Zach, as always, we love you, brother. Please tell people where they can find you.
No, man, I appreciate y'all having me once again, man. Y'all already know anytime Man, check out the website, si.com/college/FCS. We got full-length previews for every single FCS conference. We're also doing individualized team previews. We're just kind of getting those rolled out. The first HBCU we should be doing is Jackson. I think that's releasing next week. We get the update, the official updated roster. The SWAC is in about 2 weeks, so we'll have that. And then me and Coach Fred will be back on YouTube, I believe, either later this week, early next week. So, man, make sure to look out for that. We've been kind of absent on YouTube lately, man, taking a little bit of a break throughout the off season, and the audio versions of the podcast are available on all podcast streamer platforms. Myself, my God, Timothy Rosario, man, shout out to Timothy. And yeah, man, that's where you can find us.
All right. As always, like I said, definitely appreciate y'all. Stutter and Noop say I need a A&M Alabama State show with no chill. Actually, we had those planned, Simon and stuff, but we will be doing stuff throughout the season. So I talk with Wayne and From the Hill all the time, and then Khalil is busy because he has a real job with Alabama State, so we can't always get him on. But we do have another plug with Alabama State, so we'll be doing more stuff there as well. But thank y'all so much for tuning in. We'll be back Thursday talking D2, breaking down those schools in the SIAC and the CIAA. With Jamie Walker, Kelly Flicks, and D2 HBCU football. So looking forward to that. But until then, we'll see y'all. And like that, we are out.